Good morning, everyone. My name is Blanca Mejia, and I'm honored to welcome you to the satellite session for the Americas, part of the AIPPI Young Summit of 2025. This session brings together young professionals from across our region to reflect on some of the most pressing and promising topics in the world of intellectual property. The goal of the summit and of this session is simple: to connect, to share, and to grow together. Today, you'll hear from four outstanding speakers who will each offer a unique perspective grounded in their work and experience. These are not just presentations, they're starting points. We hope they will spark reflection, conversation, and maybe even collaboration beyond this space. Let me introduce our speakers: Luis Marquez from Mendez Cortez in Mexico, Idala Brum from M. Santos IP in Brazil, Jose Antonio Favara from the firm Favara in Ecuador, and Ahmed El Mallah from Canada. Before we begin, I'll walk you through a few brief housekeeping points so you know how today's session will unfold. As you know, this webinar is currently being recorded. Questions to speakers can be submitted via the Q&A box. Q&A sessions will be at the end of each presentation. For technical problems, please be sure to send a message in the chat box for the AIPPI events team. And there is a brief summary after the webinar, so we will thank you for your feedback. Now let's get started. Let me introduce our first speaker today, Luis Marquez, who is a chemical engineer and partner at Mendez Cortez, located in Mexico. His practice focuses on patents and designs, particularly on the development of technical opinions and substantive examination in chemical and manufacturing areas. He has collaborated in Mendez Cortez for more than 14 years. In his professional practice, he has collaborated on major metallurgical and chemical enterprises in Mexico in quality control and innovation of new products, as well as their rights protections. So today he'll be speaking to us about green tech in Latin America. So without further ado, please, Luis, you can go ahead.
Hi, my friends. I would like to thank you for the invitation to participate in this webinar. It is an honor to share this space with such dedicated young professionals like all of you. Thanks to the organizing team, Niklas, Blanca, Julia, and Cynthia for the excellent work and the opportunity to provide my perspective on green technologies. I hope what I share today add value and happy to be part of this young AIPPI team. My participation in this webinar will focus on green tech in Latin America. In the modern world, the use of renewable energy is neither a trend nor a local phenomenon. Globally, it has been proven that implementation of such technologies provides sustainable solutions that drive economic development and strengthen the growth of industries. I would like to start my participation by explaining what is green tech. Green technology refers to the application and creation of technologies that reduce the adverse effects of human activities on society and environment. Particularly, green tech contains a broad factors of products, services, and practices toward a sustainable future. Even though the market for green tech is still new, it has obtained a considerable level of investor attention. This is mainly because more and more people are becoming aware of the dangers of climate change and the expensive cost of natural resources. Particularly, these technologies start trending in the 90s and is now the third largest capital investment sector behind information technology and biotech. Now, we will talk about the different kinds of green tech applications. We have alternative energy, electric vehicles, sustainable agriculture, and recycling. Let's start with alternative energy. It's the one made from renewable natural resources. The most widely used renewable energy types are solar energy, wind power, bioenergy, and hydropower. Now let's talk about solar energy. Solar energy refers to the techniques for the use of photovoltaic systems, concentrating solar power and solar water heating to harness the energy. Additionally, we have wind power. Wind power refers to the use of wind energy to create useful work. Wind power is generated completely using wind turbines, commonly grouped in wind farms and connect to electrical grid. Hydropower refers to the use of falling or fast running water to produce electricity or to power machines. This is achieved by converting the gravitational potential or kinetical energy of water to produce power. Bioenergy. Bioenergy refers to the type of renewable energy that is derived from plants and animal waste. The biomass that is used in this energy consists of recently living but now dead organisms, mainly plants. Types of biomasses used for bioenergy include wood, food crops such as corn, and waste from forests, yards, or farms. Now let's talk about clean energy use in Latin America. Latin America produces about 60% of this electricity from green sources and is home to one of the cleanest power grids in the world. Although wind and solar energy have some remarkable development in recent years, hydroelectric power continues to generate most of the electricity in the region. In 2021, all of Paraguay's electricity production came from hydroelectric use, with Costa Rica using 3/4 of that amount. Both countries lead a generation of green electricity in Latin America, as illustrated in this chart. In this chart, you may note that Mexico produces around 29% using green technology. Costa Rica is one of the leading with 99%, and Paraguay is leading in the region with 100%. Argentina 31%, Chile 43%, Colombia 67%, and Brazil 81%. Brazil is the 5th Latin American country that bets the most on clean energy to produce electricity, with more than 81% behind Uruguay, 84%, and Ecuador, 82%. Advantages of green tech. Green energy offers numerous economic, environmental, and social advantages. These include reduced carbon emissions and air pollution from energy production, job creation through the increased production and manufacturing of green energy technologies, increased energy independence, lower energy costs, and expand energy access for remote coastal or isolated communities. Now, let's talk about intellectual property and green tech. Over the years, intellectual property has emerged as a foundational pillar for the protection of creativity and inventiveness, fundamental for the development of innovation and technological progress. Intellectual property rights, particular patents, are pivotal in driving innovation for a green future. Patents establish a precise framework for monetizing extensive investments. They grant inventors exclusive rights, fostering a secure environment for commercializing revolutionary technologies. Now, green patents refer to the intellectual property rights granted for green-friendly innovations that contribute to sustainability and reduce environmental impact. These patents protect technologies that promote clean energy, resource conservation, and eco-friendly manufacturing process. The Global Agency to Combat Climate Change has made green patent applications soar significantly. The World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, says the number of patent applications in the field of environmental technologies has been steadily on increase. Between 2006 and 2020, global patent application for green energy and energy efficient technologies surged by nearly 120% under the International Patent Cooperation Treaty, PCT, showing that the interest in the investment in green innovation are heightened. The major green patent filing countries are the United States, China, Japan, Germany, and South Korea. However, Brazil and Mexico are filing more and more patents in the last 5 years in the green field. These nations have not lost sight of the twin benefits of green patents, usage for environmental sustainability and economic development by placing countries at the pinnacle of technological development. Additionally, green patents are a powerful tool for a sustainable future. They stand as an essential coverage of technology and sustainability because of their potential to serve innovation, reduce environmental impacts, and deliver economic growth. Green patents are making a much more increasing contribution toward giving the world a sustainable look at a time when the world struggles for solutions to environmental problems. Other important sector is licensing agreements. For instance, allow patent holders to grant other entities the right to use their patent technology in exchange for royalties or upfront payments. This approach generates revenue without the need for direct production and implementation of sustainable innovation. Now let's talk about green tech in Latin America. Latin America is facing a growing wave of green technology, innovation, and adaptation, driven by the region's unique challenge and opportunities related to climate change and sustainability. This includes a strong focus on renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, and circular economy initiatives, with startups and established companies alike contributing to a greener future. In Latin America, 9.9% of patents filed in the region were classified as green technologies, slightly above the global average of 9.3%. Latin America has enormous potential. Countries like Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and Mexico are already taking steps to support eco-innovations. Brazil, for instance, is a leader in biofuels and has streamed its process to green patents more quickly. Chile is advancing in solar energy, especially in the Atacama Desert, and Mexico has introduced fast-track programs for sustainable technologies. Additionally, we still face big challenges for sure. One of the biggest is low investment in research and development. Many inventors and startups struggle to get the funding and technological support needed to turn ideas into patent solutions. In addition, patent systems can be slow and complicated. And in many countries, there's a lack of awareness about the value of protecting green technologies. But aside of everything, change is happening. Regional cooperation is growing. Some countries are creating special programs to speed up green patents. Organizations like the World Intellectual Property WIPO are helping training investors and improve systems. Here's why this is matter. Green patents can drive a green economy. They encourage business to invest in clean tech, and they protect local innovation. Particularly, they help Latin America not only reduce its carbon footprint, but also become a global leader in sustainable development. Green tech development in Brazil, Mexico, and Chile, which are among the Latin American countries with the greatest potential to expand green tech research and commercialization. Many Latin American countries face low levels of investment, limit access to financing for green startups, and bureaucratic hurdles in patent registrations. Despite these barriers, there is progress. Regional cooperation is growing with organizations working to harmonize green patent policies. International support from the United Nations and development is also playing a role by funding clean tech incubators and patent training programs. Furthermore, green tech offers an opportunity for Latin American countries to boost economic growth and employment, increase technology exports, and transition into higher value services. However, there are main barriers to green tech innovation in the fields of such as access to capital, inadequate government support, and lack of industry-academia ties. Every day, researchers and universities across Latin America are developing green technologies that could transform key sectors like energy, agriculture, transport, and construction. However, many of these solutions never reach the industry simply because they are not known. Green tech not only protect environmentally friendly innovations, they represent a really opportunity to modernize production, reduce environmental impact, and boost competitiveness. But in order for these benefits to be realized, we must ensure that industries are aware of such access to these technologies. We need accessible platforms, public-private partnerships, technological fairs, and strong knowledge transfer programs that can turn green inventions into potential industrial tools. Only when we can bridge this gap between innovation and application, a better future will be on our side. Now we will talk about Brazil. Brazil is the clear leader in clean energy innovation within Latin America. The region's largest economy has been a global leader in bioenergy production by decades. The most power is generation from hydroelectricity, as well as growing share of wind and solar energy, providing a large potential market of clean energy consumers. Additionally, Brazil has filed the largest number of patent applications in the region, including green energy. The government has accelerated the green technology patenting process through its Green Patent Initiative. Now let's talk about Mexico. The Mexican green tech and green market generates about US 505 million in 2023, and is projected to grow at a 23% to 2 billion by 2030. In Mexico, innovation efforts include technology for solar refrigerations, solar cooktops, and solar lighting, as well as technology that allows escaping heat from calcination ovens to be captured and reused. Additionally, Mexican startups had more success in commercializing biodiesel technologies. However, these companies are very small in scale and their impact on the market is poor. Mexico's numerous universities and research centers working in clean energy contribute to IP creation through the training of electromechanical, industrial, and chemical engineers. Chile. Since March 2023, Chile's SINAPIS launched accelerated processing of green patents, aiming to reduce examination time by about 1/3, enabling registration in under a year. Qualifying technologies include those supporting clean energy, circular economy, biocontrol pesticides, water recycling, for example, gray water and seawater. Chile has been home to many biomass-focused research centers, but in recent years, wind, solar, ocean, and geothermal energy have also gained ground. The Chilean government encouraged innovations through policies aimed at building human capital, promoting scientific research, and incentivizing corporate innovation. Today, we have explored the landscape of green technology in Latin America. We have seen that this region holds tremendous potential to lead in sustainability. But we have also acknowledged the challenges the region has. Sun and wind alone are not enough. We need current policies, sustained investment, education, and above all, collective will. Green technology isn't just an option for the future, it's an urgent need for the present. Every clean kilowatt, every local innovation, every young person trained in sustainability contributes to a large transformation in Latin America. The opportunity to change our trajectory is in our hands. It's just not only about saving trees or cutting emissions. It's about building a fairer, more resilient, and more dignified future and model of development for future generations. Latin America has everything it needs to be part of the solution. Now it's time to us to decide what role we want to play in this story. Thank you. Sincerely, I want to thank you for the opportunity to take part in this webinar. It was truly an honor to be part of such a committed and passionate group of professionals. This experience has been enriching, and I really value the knowledge that is taking place during these sessions and satellites. I would like to forward continuing to learn and collaborate with all of you in future initiatives. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you so much, Luis, for that valuable presentation. We're going to open up the floor for some questions from the audience, if any.
Yes, I'm looking up for questions. They are asking what kind of companies are filing green patents the most in Latin American, startups or large energy firms. For example, in Brazil, one of the leading is state companies, biofuel like Braskem. So in Mexico and Brazil, I may say that large energy firms. But for example, Chile is becoming more and more important in the region for startups. I don't know if there's any other question.
Seems like that might be the only question at the moment. We remind everybody that the Q&A portion of the webinar is provided so that questions can be asked to our panelists. We thank you, Luis, very much for your time today. And with that, I think we can go ahead with our second presentation from Idala Brum, who is a founder and partner at M. Santos Intellectual Property in Brazil. She's a qualified attorney and industrial property agent in Brazil with a specialization in civil procedural law and business management. Idala has a strong focus on digital law, iGaming, privacy, and data protection, and she's actively involved in key professional organizations such as INTA, AIPPI, ACIPPI, and the Brazilian Bar Association. She was recently recognized as one of INTA's rising stars and listed as a leading individual in Brazil by WTR 1000. So, Idala, we are very honored to have you. Welcome to this space. And without further ado, you can go ahead and start your presentation.
It just me share my screen. So I hope you can see. Good morning, dear colleagues, and actually good morning, afternoon, or even depending wherever you are. As Blanca correctly said, my name is Idala Brum. I'm a senior partner here in M. Santos Intellectual Property. We are based in Rio de Janeiro. And it's a pleasure to be here with you all, with the colleagues in the panel and everything, and everyone that's also watching it, especially to Blanca for kindly inviting me to this event. I'll start answering the probably the biggest question that you have to me, that what is that in your finger? So you cannot get distracted. I'll tell you that I broke it. It had a surgery, so do not pay attention to it. Pay attention to what I'm going to tell you about. I'm going here to talk about a little bit of the trademark enforcement and brand protection in the Brazilian betting market, the legal frontier of a new digital economy. That's it. Therefore, let me start with a simple image. You land in Rio de Janeiro, pull out your phone, and scroll through 6 betting apps, all offering identical welcome odds and all wearing almost identical new green bet plus soccer ball logos. In Brazil's newly regulated betting space, your trademark no longer sits on a shop front sign. It's a 32-pixel icon competing with a thumb tap of a 5-inch screen. The tiny icon is now the doorway to billions of reais in wagers, sponsorships, and if you fail to protect it, copycats. The size and impact of Brazil's betting market provide context for a growing demand for protection. Estimated 20 to 30 billion reais per month in betting volume, over 22 million active monthly users, 100 billion reais in lost retail revenue due to redirected consumer spending, annual 9 billion reais marketing spent by betting companies, with 1/3 dedicated to football sponsorships. Despite the regulatory advances, a large share of operations still process revenue offshore. In parallel, we have witnessed an unprecedented surge in trademark conflicts among operators adopting highly similar bad designations. Domain name disputes involving both .br and .bet addresses acquired within hours of new launches, and advertisement compliance challenges in a platform first economy driven by digital sponsorships, influencer marketing, and mobile applications. Let's now proceed to examine the legal landscape. Brazil is undergoing an unprecedented betting boom. Some studies show the number of registered betting operators leaping from 840 in 2022 to more than 2,100 in 2024, and preliminary 2025 filings already recorded further 1,200 incorporations, an additional of 61.5% year-on surge. These companies now hold over 12 billion reais in paid-in capital, roughly 40 times the agreeable capital of Brazil's AI startups. That is almost 300 million reais. Set against a customer base exceeding 42 million active punters, with bettors staking over 30 billion reais every single month, the data confirm that trademark strategy is no longer optional. It is the price of admission to a hyper-competitive, rapidly expanding market. So what triggered this flood? Law 147090 from 2023 transformed the old dormant fixed odds statute into an operational framework, confirmed that private entities may run spot bettings and online platforms once they purchase a license. Ordinance MF 1330 from 2023 set the commercial terms, 30 million reais per license, 5-year term, strict integrity audits. In Federal SPA Ordinance 827 from 2024 and 566 from 2025, then drilled deeper. The first one mapped the authorization procedure, and the second one tied payment service providers and advertisers to the operators' compliance track record. International operators raced in, domestic entrepreneurs launched white label schemes overnight, and the BBTO was suddenly hit by a tidal wave of bet whatever filings. The conflict became inevitable. When you looked, let's orientate ourselves on the timeline. In 2018, an earlier law 13,756 legalized fixed odds betting, but left implementation to future decrees. The market stayed gray, technically tolerated but unlicensed. Operators sensing opportunity filed defenses trademark just in case. Then came the pandemic era online game boom, and with it, the first big BPTO refusals of bet marks on destructiveness grounds under our Article 124 of our law. In 2023 marks the real breakout year. The Congress passed the law for 14,790 to the Minister of Finance issued the Ordinance 1,330, and suddenly license applications became real. Clearance in report moved to nice to have to deal breaker. Investors would not wire 30 million reais unlicensed fee unless they mark cleared. In 2024, the SPA 827 clarified the authorization path. The 566 in March of this year added a powerful twist. Payment platforms must freeze transactions for any operator flagged by regulators or by a court for IP infringement, advertisement, or other violations. That single clause weaponizes trademarks by linking them directly to cash flow. Those rules triggered a tidal wave of filings. Until the first semester of this year, the BBTO has already received more than 1,700 trademark filings containing the word bet, with a plus 30% success rate, like for approvals and grantings. Regarding this, examiners apply 5 touchstones to examine them. First, generic words won't carry the mark. Bet, aposta, and jogo are descriptive for example, class 41. The BBTO automatically flags them. Only overwhelming evidence of acquiring distinctiveness might reverse a refusal, but sometimes it's rarely worth the effort. Second, let the graphic element do the heavy lifting. A dominant logo or coin prefix must eclipse the word bet. Mythical creatures, lightning bolts, or bold abstractions pass. A plain soccer ball does not. Third, specification must use BPTO approved wording. Stick to lawful terms such as fixed odd betting service or soft fixed odd betting, phrases like casino, gambling, and slot machines violate our law and trigger the 60-day deadline regularization of section. Ignore it and the application shelved. Fourth, the Madrid adds a double filter. Under Article 6 quinqueness plus Rule 18er, any unlawful wording in a Madrid designation produces the same regularization hurdle. Fail to amend and the BR designation dies. Plus the 5-year basic mark dependency still applies. Many operators file a parallel national application as insurance. And last, multi-class coherency and is scrutinized. Betting operators often bundle classes 9 and 25, 28, 30, 35, and also 41. Examiners demand functional consistency and may issue partial refusals, provide color specimens, lawful descriptions, and a fallback plan to keep the core of the mark alive. Therefore, there is some examples of the trademark application I was about to tell you. You can see in the first one, the PixBet, it has a distinctly graphic and invented word and outweighed the descriptive of nature bet. It was granted. The second trademark is super aposta bet. It's like a super betting bet when you translate it. And it was refused due to all verbal elements deemed descriptive for betting service, generic graphic elements fails to add distinctiveness. And the third one, it was refused in the first instance, and then with appeal, it was reverted, it was granted. Appeals board found the coin and prefix of an overrepresentation sufficiently distinctive despite the presence of bet. They're all recent, and they're really good cases in your own client matter. Going on, we have brand clarity, however, is only the beginning. In a platform, first economy exposure moves to a speed of a swipe, and Conar's Annex 10 now imposes granular rules of every pixel of betting advertisement. CONAR is the public institution that fiscalizes and regulates publicity and advertisement here in Brazil. 3 focal points they have: influencers and affiliates. The rules are the post must be explicitly tagged publicity or paid partnership and name the licensed operator. Prominent 18+ icon on screen talent. The talent that is making the advertisement must look plus than 21 years. No claims of guaranteed profit, easy money, or life-changing success. If you do this, these are the consequences. You undisclosed ad, automatic corner summons, repeat violators face public blacklisting, and platform demonetization. Second, responsible gambling prompts. Every piece, stories, banners, push alerts must carry a legible warning. For example, play responsibly, plus an 18+ age gate. Ads without the warning can be suspended within 24 hours on CONAR's order, and fines accrued for per impression. Verification and age gate. Operators' social profiles must display verified badges and enable age restriction filters. Minors are an absolute red line. TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube now require proof of compliance before reinstalling flagged accounts. In the platform-first economy, trademark clearance and CONAR compliances are CMS strings. Launch the trademark only after first, the PPTO search clears, and second, every influencer brief embeds Annex 10 checklists. Identification tag, 18+, responsible play calls, and a strict ban on get rich quick language. Failure on either front can ground a campaign in hours and trigger cascading payment freezes under Ordinance 516 from this year. The reputational stakes are underscored by 2 events from May this year. First, a technical note from Senacon, the National Consumer Secretariat, instructed state-level PROCONs to treat bonus schemes and get rich quick slogans as abuse advertisement under Article 37 of the Consumer Code. Second, the Senate inquiry, nicknamed the CPI das Bets, questioned a celebrity influencer whose contract allegedly awarded her up to 30% of Puncture's net losses. The hearing triggered nationwide headlines and probable CONAR proceedings because Decree Law 3688 from 1941, criminalizing unauthorized games of chance, remains in the books. It's still illegal to play games of chance in Brazil. And any operator or sponsor that steps outside the license requirements risks not only consumer sanctions, but also misdemeanor liability. Brazilian courts increasingly frame gambling addiction concerns and as a matter of constitutional dignity. So marketing that appears to prey on vulnerability can be shut down even when the trademark itself is faultlessly registered. So as you can see, in May 2025, the Sanacon sent this note, and in May, also the CPI das Bets. Here's the influencer Virginia Fonseca. For me, it's the most important case we have already regarding betting, because the Senate inquiry revealed contracts that she was receiving money if people lose money. Unfortunately, it was shelved, but some politicals are trying to put it, go through it. Why does this matter about brand strategy? Trademark strategy is in the betting sector no longer exists in a vacuum. Clearance, creative briefs, influencer contracts, and bonus mechanisms must be audited in one integrated workflow. A pristine BPTO certificate means little if your sponsorship model is perceived as a fueling addiction of breaching the consumer law. Branding decisions, therefore, must pass a three-layer test: IP legality, two, consumer law compliance, and third, social responsibility optics. Considering evolving regulations and a competitive global market, the trademark protection in the betting industry requires a proactive strategy and cross-disciplinary awareness, as I already said. Below are key practice and discussion questions already designed to guide participants in addressing legal, commercial, and reputational challenges in the space. The recommended bets practices are: conduct naming due diligence early, use precise and lawful specifications, establish continuous trademark monitoring, implement robust licensing agreements, and prevent international filings. According to the BPTO and legal opinion number 19, trademark protection for betting services is permitted only if the applicant operates within the legal framework established in the law number 14,790. So you can use online sport betting service, provisional fixed odds betting services, software for fixed odds betting, online betting service, online games, entertainment. You cannot use casino, games of chance, slot machines, betting establishments, gambling, and lotteries. Application using these terms will be rejected. And my final recommendation is layer the tools below to turn a registration into a real-world shutdown power. I just had a little panel for you to see the tools you can use to prevent and to protect your trademark in Brazil. We have the BPTO position, we have civil injunction to go before court to try to protect it. We have the payment freeze and the main names, ways to protect it. We have quite a lot of weapons to try to defend it. This is it. This is what I had to tell you. I'm open to any questions if you need anything else. Thank you for joining me on this quick tour on Brazil's betting frontier. The takeaway is clear: fire early, advertise responsibly, and be ready to stack enforcement tools the moment infringement appears. With those three habits, the 32 pixel icon will stay safe and profitable in the most dynamic gaming market on the planet. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Idala, for that presentation. We appear to have a question on the Q&A portion of the webinar. And with so many new BET trademarks, do you think BPTO will change how they examine these in the future? Or are there any trademark strategies that work especially well in such a crowded field?
So first of all, thank you for the question. Well, the bet is kind of getting, the bet word is getting like ordinary. It's like using river and sun. So you have to add something to the trademark. And I used to say to my clients, do the compiled trademark to try to get attention, because the BPTO will receive a lot of, has received a lot of application with the word bet. You have to make your trademark the most distinctive as possible regarding this market. And the second part is, are there any trademark strategies that work especially well in such crowded field? Is what I said, you have to use catchy words. Like we have this huge football team here in Brazil, it's called Flamengo. And unusually, they have their own betting app. It's called Flabet. So they use the fla is the first part of the word to bet, and it's made this like more Flamengo lookalike. So you have to first see when and where you want to operate, because we have this national license. We also have the state license. You have just to make a market analysis and focus where to which consumer you want to reach, and then we can elaborate it better. So, thank you.
Idala, a question on my behalf, and perhaps a follow-up question to that one. Is there a concept of secondary meaning in Brazil?
Until now, no. But in the end of the year, after September, we have these new services from the BPTO that will be able to request the distinctiveness of a trademark. But it has to have been in use for like at least 3 years, and you have to make like social studies to see if the public recognize the trademark. So it's a thing to elaborate, and if you have like already a distinctiveness use in your own country, it can help.
That's interesting. So that's a new disposition.
Yeah, we have new service coming after August, and new fees as well. But yeah, we have nice things going on, and if you have any doubts about Brazil, but I'm glad to help you. But yeah, we're gonna have this new service to request the BPTO to recognize the distinctiveness of usual and common trademark.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So I actually had a question. You were going on about Coner actions. Coner would be a legal entity in Brazil, right?
Yeah, it's a public entity. Yeah, it fiscalizes everything. I don't know if you heard about the Volkswagen problem we had here in Brazil, because we had this famous singer that she died, and they made a TV publicity using her daughter. She's a singer as well, and making an AI version of that singer. And some people went to CONAR to say, hey, they are making public misbehavior, they're like misguiding the consumers because she's dead, and it is one of the public entities that make studies and see if it's not violating consumer law or not, if it's misleading consumers or not. So it's the most and strong institute we have to make this type of work.
Okay, understood. It's interesting to see how IP converges with other aspects of the law, such as like advertising law. I also saw something that caught my eye. I saw that it said that influencers and the like must look 21 and older. Does that mean they don't have to be 21? They just have to look 21?
They have to be 18 plus, but they have to look older, because here in Brazil we have this bank way of payment. It's called PIX. It's really easy. It's instant payments through bank apps, and sometimes these apps, they do not request proof of documentation and age. So if the younger people look to these influencers and see, they look like me, they're young, they can do that, so I can do as well. It's really a big concern in Brazil with addiction. We have really hard and bad examples of addiction of it. So if you look 21, probably the youngers will not be that interested in you.
What happens if they look younger and they are probably 30 years old or something?
Yeah, so the CONA will issue like a sanction, and you like lose money and have a lot of probably you have this huge money to pay, and your product will be frozen for a while, and you
Until you
stop
can
using
prove
it.
that you are at the appropriate age.
How you prove it?
Yeah?
Yeah, you have to prove it. You send your documents, and then
If you want
see, it's me. I look more than 21.
That's crazy though. That's crazy. It's interesting. It's very interesting that it says must look plus 21 years old, because usually there's like a strict age requirement and you have to prove that up beforehand and such. But maybe in this sector it's a little complicated.
Yeah, it's
Um,
because it goes through all age. We have this huge addiction to Instagram, like for example, and we see. I know the Instagram app says you need to be more than, I don't know, 13 or 14 to be a member in Instagram, but they don't look to it. So we have to make it harder to people to get in touch with this type of actions, because it's, like I said, it's still criminalized in Brazil. The gambling, they have this difference. If the game is by lucky, it's forbidden. But if it demands skills, it's okay, like poker. So it's a timeline. You have to really be really like take care of it.
Yeah, I see that. So also, there was also another question that I had. You were giving a lot of statistics in reais, and I was wondering the exchange rate in US dollars.
Let me see the like the monthly they spend like 30 million reais. You divide it by 6, it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's five in dollars, $5 million per month in betting spends.
That's an impressive number. It's
It's
an
a lot of
impressive number.
money, and people are complaining
Yeah.
they don't have money. So yeah, it's
Everybody has time to bet. Well, thank you so much, Idala. Actually, I really do appreciate you attending to my questions and which I
uh,
hope are some of the questions that people in the audience might have had as well. Thank you again for your time. And with that being said, I think we can go ahead with our third panelist for this session, my good friend Jose Antonio Favara, who has more than 10 years of experience in the law, focusing his professional practice in areas of sports entertainment, corporate, and intellectual property. He currently leads the sport and entertainment law practice at his firm, Bustamante Favara, and his specialization in sports matter, both in law and management, has allowed him to provide comprehensive advice to athletes, clubs, federations, event organizers, agencies, sponsors, and other actors involved in the sports sector. So without further ado, you have the floor. Jose Antonio, welcome to this session.
Thank you, Blanca. Thank you to all the young members of AIPPI and this committee for organizing this young AIPPI forum and for the invitation. Good morning to everyone. So when Blanca gave me the opportunity on thinking for a theme on a presentation for this forum, I only had a couple of seconds, and I knew that I had to do something about sports. And this is because I believe that the sports for me is the most important thing of the least important things in my life. But it plays a big important role, and that's why also I focus or try to focus my practice in sports and entertainment. And specifically, I'm gonna talk about who owns the game, data ownership, and IP strategies for sports analytics. So first of all, why is it so important? And what's the relevance of data in sports? So big data is playing a huge role in sports in the last couple of years. And for example, there's 3.5 million data points generated in every Liga match in Spain, and in an NFL game, 3 terabytes of tracking data are generating, and this is being used to lower 27% a reduction in lower body injuries in the NFL. All around the world, there's more than 100 countries and 4,000 elite teams that are using wearables for live performance data. And all of this data that's being collected is being used as knowledge that provides a measurable competitive advantage for this team and for these athletes. Therefore, I believe that those who harness this data and this knowledge will have not only advantages on, but also off the field, as I'm gonna portray in this presentation. So what are some of the uses in sports? First of all, for tactical analysis and to kind of manage movements in teams. Also to the reduction of injuries, like I was telling you in the NFL. Also in sports betting and sports gaming is being used to determine what's the tariff that they're going to pay depending on the predictability of the outcome of a game. Also in scouting, it's being used because that helps the different teams to reduce the uncertainty in recruitment. In advertisement and in sports marketing, it helps for audience segmentation, and also to determine the brand return and measurement. In the video assistant referee, it helps deliver position data to the video room in milliseconds, and that helps the referees to take a educated decision in these matters and reduce any mistake made by the referees. And in stadiums, it's been used to make smart stadiums and help fan engagement, and that obviously will attract more fans to the different games. So I basically divided in 3 categories the uses of data in sports. That's first, sports performance and tactical analysis, health, biometrical and physiology, business, marketing and fan experience, and personal and historical data of the athlete. And this data that's being collected, it's from different stakeholders that participate in an event, in a sports event, and it's players, fans, brands, teams, viewers, among many others. And just to give you some examples of the data that's being collected, for players, obviously the data that's being collected is regarding their performance during the game, and what were the factors that may have been affecting this performance. For teams, it's how the different players that form part of this team are being are working together, are positioning in the field, and helping take important decisions regarding tactical strategies. For fans, everything a fan does is being recorded. If he went to a game, if he bought a shirt of a certain team, if he maybe placed a bet on a betting platform, and for brands to value their return of their investments, the minutes or seconds that their brand appears in the transmission of a sports event is being recorded to determine whether their investment is having the return that they expected. And with this introduction, we have to ask who owns this data. And there are some stakeholders or some interested on now owning this data, because obviously as the importance of data grows, the monetary or monetization of this data also grows. And I believe that, first of all, players are one of the ones that want to own this data, because obviously they say, there's data being collected or data that regards my specific performance, therefore it is my data. Also, in this case, the La Liga Pro, the Ecuadorian Liga Pro, I've put that picture because the organizer of the event argues that the data collected is regarding the specific event that they are organizing. Teams argue that they invest money in retrieving these and organizing this data. Sports federation, they may argue that they oversee the official competitions, and therefore all the data generated is theirs. Broadcasting networks may say that because they have rights over the transmission of the event, therefore the data that's generated regarding that broadcasting of the event and the live footage, therefore the data is theirs. And the data collection and analysis platforms may say that the vehicle to retrieve this data and to organize and analyze this data is theirs, and therefore the data is of this platform. But to make or to start the analysis on who really owns it, I believe that there are three principal sections that we have to analyze, or arguments that we have to analyze. First of all, the arena right and the right of admission, the audiovisual recordings, and the titularity of a database. But before entering into this analysis, I believe, and when I was investigating that, I realized that I believe that it depends on how this data being collected. And here are some examples on how data is being collected. For example, wearable sensors, field devices, tracking cameras and computer vision systems, and scouts in stadiums, hybrid methods between AI and human analysis, and the specialized softwares and platforms. So first of all, for wearable sensors, I'm not going to enter directly in the analysis of this one because I believe that that's not that important for the areas that I'm going to analyze. And for the first part of the analysis, I'm going to tell you about field devices, tracking cameras, and computer visions, and scouts in the stadiums. So the field devices basically are and retrieve data on equipment, field conditions, weather, and other environmental variabilities that may affect the game. Tracking cameras and computer visions are advanced video recording that help analyze and obtain tactical and positional data. And the scouts in the stadium is basically, as the picture on the left of the screen shows it, someone that goes physically to the stadium to record this data. And why the first part of this analysis I'm going to center in these three ways of retrieving data, because the arena right and the right of admission are two rights that refer to the organizer of the event. And the exclusive right, for example, the arena right is the exclusive right that the organizer has to control the commercial and media exploitation of the sports event. This is a common right used in the sports law to recognize this right that the organizer of the event has. On the other hand, right of admission is the legal tool that allows this organizer of the event to decide whether someone can get on the sporting event and what he could do inside of this sporting event. Therefore, and analyzing these specific rights that the organizer of the event has, and going back to how is data collected, it's important to take into consideration that only the organizer of the event could place field devices, tracking cameras, and allow scouts to enter the stadium. Therefore, with this first analysis, we may conclude that the organizer of the event is the owner of the data regarding these specific things. And if someone, what happens if someone, for example, enters to the stadium without the organizer realizing and uses tracking cameras and computer vision system to track data? That data retrieved will not have a valid origin, and therefore I believe that the organizer of the event may claim the ownership of such data. For the, sorry, I have to go back. For a hybrid method that uses AI and human analysis, this is basically using pre-recorded material of a specific event or a live feed of that event to use AI to generate this data, and that it's afterwards validated by human analysis. And something similar happens with the specialized software and platforms. But in these specific methods, there's a broadcasting being used by these platforms. Therefore, I believe that we have to analyze whether audiovisual recordings of a sports event are protected by copyright or related rights. First of all, regarding copyright, we have to determine whether it has the originality and creativity to be considered as a work that could be protected by copyright. Obviously, this is audiovisual work that we understand audiovisual work as a series of associated images, and fixation regarding the proof of the work to have it on a material support. And just as a clarification, it's important to understand that the analysis whether the audiovisual recording is a work that may be protected by copyright is completely independent on the material object that it's being part of what it's been filmed. And for example, what could be protected by copyright? It would be a broadcast of an event, but only if it includes artistic shot selection, dynamic editing, original music, replays, and not only the live transmission of a sports event. On the other hand, related rights are basically when filming does not reach the threshold of originality required to be considered a work, but there is a fixation of images and sounds that the producer of this filmation, of this audiovisual recording, and the broadcaster that distributes this recording may have rights over them, or has rights over them. So the protection of this is so when the broadcasting that not complies with the minimum requirements to be considered a work protected by copyrights. And reviewing different decisions in different countries, I believe that the prevailing legal position is that the audiovisual recordings and live signals of sporting events do not qualify as works because they do not satisfy the originality requirement necessary under copyright doctrine, and because the underlying competition that it's being recorded is unscripted, unpredictable, and do not have authorial creativity. Instead, it's being granted the protection of a related right or neighboring right to broadcasting organizations and to event organizers who secured exclusive control over the fixation and reproduction and communication of this event. So going back to the methods of collecting this data, and after analyzing copyright and related rights, my second part of the conclusion is that event organizers and broadcasting and media organizations are owners or could be owners of this data. Going to the third part of the analysis and who is owner of the database, I believe that for a database to be considered a work, it has to have statistical models and advanced metrics, pattern detection, clustering and segmentation, data visualization and decision and decision support tools. Therefore, it's not only the grouping of data, but it's the creativity on how to organize the data that is being retrieved. And the protection of databases, they could constitute original intellectual creativity, but it's important to clarify that they do not protect data itself, but how this data is being presented and organized that could be protected by copyrights. And usually these databases are being created under a legal entity that it's or that would be the owner of the economic rights, but obviously individual authors may retain certain moral rights. And the owner obviously has exclusive rights to reproduce, distribute, publicly communicate, and transform the database as works. And therefore, who owns the game? And first of all, as I was telling you, there's a big importance of the big data in sports because they constitute a great asset to make strategic decisions, both in commercial and business in sports, but also in performance, in tactical analysis, and in improvement of their athletes' performance. The applicable legal protection, I believe that it has to center in the protection of databases, as I was telling you, the recordings and footage of sports events, specifically in this case, the protection as related rights, and the right of arena and the right of admission that the organizers have. Regarding the data and database ownership, I believe it depends on the origin of the data, the method of collection, contractual agreement between parties involved, and in many cases, I believe that the event organizer would be the owner of the data and the databases generated. The exercise of the rights by the holders may or they could prevent third parties or non-authorized third parties of the use and of this data, and they obviously could restrict such use. As a general recommendation, the protection and exploitation of sports data must always be carried out in compliance with applicable regulations of personal data protection, depending on the country or the applicable law to where the data is being collected. Also, regarding the intellectual property legislation and the fundamental rights of the parties that being involved. But my general conclusion is that there is not a complete certainty on who is the owner of this data. And therefore, the only solution, I believe that the only solution for this matter, it's agreement between the different parties involved that have the necessary authorizations for the collection, management, and commercialization of the data. And in here, I believe that these authorizations have to have kind of a series of a chain and connected authorizations that start from players or athletes that grant the authorizations to clubs. These clubs grant the authorizations to leagues or federations that organize the events. The leagues and federations grant the authorizations to broadcasters, and broadcasters grant the authorizations to database holders that afterward sell or distribute these data and organized as a database to players, clubs that want to have and take specific decisions regarding their development and their performance. This is my presentation, and just as a final commentary, when I was finishing the presentation and reviewing it in the days before, I realized that that my love in sports and the analysis of this data ownership kind of generates some frustration to me, and this is because I love how unpredictable the outcome of a game may be. And when you realize that everything is being measured, then it kind of stop being so unpredictable, and kind of takes a part of the love of the game, and that's why I put this picture of me. But thank you everyone, and glad being part of this. Hopefully, this would give you, as Blanca said in her introduction, the starting point to discuss who owns the data. And also, I believe that here on, we are going to have many cases of stakeholders debating on who owns the data, and that will give us some other aspects and information to conclude on who really owns the game. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jose. That was very, very interesting. And thank you for sharing that picture of you. I did not know you were a professional paddle player.
Not professional.
Well, I'm very glad that you get the chance to work at something that you obviously enjoy. And before we leave you, there is a question from the audience regarding standard contracts. Are there any standard contracts used in sports that cover data ownership clearly?
I believe that the standard contracts are being, or that are usually having clauses that have general clauses regarding IP matters and data protection and personal data protection, especially in labor contracts between athletes and clubs. The authorizations that clubs give to event organizers, federations, and leagues, among others, this is not a contract that are being signed between one party and the other, but because the club is part or affiliated to the federation, then the authorization goes throughout the statutes and the different rules that the federation issues to regulate the game. And because this is kind of a pyramidal structure where the club goes under the federation, then it has to comply such regulations.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you again for your time, and thank you for sharing with us what you enjoy the most. With that, we can move on to our fourth and final panelist for today's session. Let me introduce Ahmed El Mallah, and this is actually my second time introducing Ahmed El Mallah as a speaker for the satellite session for the Americas. So thank you very much, Ahmed, for coming this time and participating again. Everything that you've shared in the past has been very useful and valuable, and I can testify to that. And I'm sure that what you're speaking on today will be appreciated as well. So let me introduce Ahmed as a Canadian intellectual property lawyer and patent agent with a focus on patent drafting, prosecution, and strategic portfolio development. He advises clients on securing patents in Canada and the US, internationally as well, covering a wide range of technologies, including AI, FinTech, CleanTech, and advanced engineering systems. He also has a background in electrical engineering, and with this, he brings deep technical insights to his IP practice, and he currently serves as director of the Intellectual Property Institute of Canada. So welcome, Ahmed. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Blanca. Let me share my screen here. Does that show up on your end? I'll take. Sorry, I can't see.
It does not. No.
It does not show up on your end. Okay,
No.
sorry.
Take your
Maybe
time. Take your time.
Oh, I see where I went wrong. What's it?
There we go. We can see it now.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks everybody for having me. I'm probably following on 3 really well done presentations, and I don't know if I'll quite knock at their level. This presentation might be a little bit shorter, but I hope it will be informative at the very least. So the topic for today is protecting financial innovation, looking at IP strategies and maybe focusing, or with a little bit of focus on Canada's FinTech sector, which is an up-and-coming sector altogether. As Blanca noted, my name is Ahmed, and I am counsel at Bennett Jones, and I'm based up in Edmonton, in Canada. I am a Canadian patent and trademark agent. I have about 10 years of experience in a variety of different types of patents. So maybe the way I'll kind of divide this presentation is, in the first part, I'll talk a little bit about the growth of FinTech in Canada. And maybe the purpose of that is to really highlight that Canada is a strongly emerging economy adopting FinTech, and is an economy that's worth investing in FinTech if you're a foreign investor, or even if you're a Canadian investor. And then once we kind of lay the land out there, I'll segue into things that you should think about when you're trying to, maybe outside of Canada, maybe if you have clients that are, based wherever you're based, and they want to protect their FinTech innovations in Canada, a few tidbits to help position that. And I'll be very candid up front. Most of this presentation will be more patent focused. And the reason being is I don't know that from a trademark perspective, or even a copyright perspective, there's too much to highlight that's unique about the FinTech industry. But maybe from a patent perspective, there's a few things to just kind of key on. And it won't get too detailed or too intensive, but just at a high level to help you out. So growth in Canada's FinTech sector. What is FinTech? FinTech is a lot of stuff, as you probably might appreciate. Mobile banking apps, digital wallets, online lending platforms, Of course, nowadays, blockchain and cryptocurrency systems. And now with AI really ramping up, there's a lot of AI-enabled fintech innovation and maybe fraud detection and credit scoring tools. And so, it spans a lot of stuff. Anything that's maybe not cash-based payment and you're doing it online, I think probably touches on fintech in one sense or the other. And in this economy, I don't know really that I can't speak to other countries, but in Canada, very few people now carry actual cash. Most people are using their mobile phones to pay, or their credit cards or their debit cards. And so the economy really has transitioned from a cash-based system to an online, I guess, technology fintech-based system, and that involves a lot of innovation, right? And there's a lot of IP that's really baked into that. And so maybe focusing a little bit more on Canada now. Canada's fintech sector is growing rapidly, driven by digital banking, payment innovations, blockchain, and AI-based financial tools. Canada has approximately 850 fintech companies, which is actually quite sizable if you compare it to the US, which is a market which is probably more than 10 times the size of Canada, and that has about 6,000 fintech companies. And so I think Canada really knocks above its weight when it comes to the number of fintech companies that exist in Canada, but also how much innovation it produces relative to the global economy. So this is a big proportion given the population and economy difference, again, between Canada and the US. So this was a report back in 2024. It was a KPMG report. And it was just talking about the level of fintech investment in Canada, again, kind of building on that narrative of Canada really positioning itself as a fintech hub. And so Canada hit about a record of US 9.5 billion in investment deals, which was about a tenfold increase from the previous year. Here's a neat graph that KPMG came up with, and you'll notice in 2024, 2021 it was doing pretty well, and then it kind of quieted down in 2022, and then it kind of blew up again in 2024. So there's a lot happening in Canada. Some of the big deals that happened in Canada was recently, just in 2024, Nuvei, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, which is a payment technology partner. This was the second largest deal globally across the world. It was a US 6.3 billion takeover by this US-based financial service firm, Advent International. It was the largest deal in Canada. And the other really big deal that happened last year was PulseGrade, which is another kind of fintech company here based in Montreal, which is a little bit ironic. I'm originally based in Edmonton, but I'm sitting in Montreal right now because I had something to attend. And Montreal is very, very active in the fintech scene. So that was a $1 billion private equity investment. So a lot happening in Canada. Just two more slides here, but venture capital investors, I think, invested about 1.09 billion across 90 deals, and a lot of big numbers. We don't have to go through all of it, but all to say, a lot of innovation, a lot of investment, everything from AI to payments to wealth tech to crypto. You name it, it's happening here in Canada. And maybe to kind of wrap up that story, it's maybe just to back up, it's one thing to say, there's a lot of investment happening in Canada, but I think to complete the sentence and to complete the story, it's important to also highlight that Canadians as a population really adopt fintech. And I think the relevance of this is when you're thinking about an IP position and whether it's worth investing your IP in Canada. Canada, I think, is a market that, going back to the beginning of the presentation, where companies, I think, are keen on investing because Canadians will adopt their tools and will adopt their technology. And so if they're investing in Canada and they're investing their tech in Canada, I think it's also worth making the case that they should also, push their IP position into Canada as well to kind of complement their technology push in the country. And so 90% of total consumer payments in Canada were made without physical cash, which is really, really significant. 81% of over the 22 million Canadian subscribers have smartphones. 8 million have near-field communication to allow that kind of tap communication for payment. 28% of Canadians use their mobile devices to conduct banking activities, and a few other numbers. So general comments before we go into more of the IP discussion, which is Canada is a large and burgeoning market for fintech companies. Some large US-based acquisitions of Canadian companies have happened, and Canadians really do adopt this type of tech. So with that all being said, and maybe with that background being fleshed out, if we take a little bit of a closer look at what it means to patent fintech, and I'm going to do this again in maybe two quick segments. The first segment, I'll show you the statistics of who is patenting in Canada and what is being patented, and then I'll give you a few key points to put in mind when if you happen to be drafting patent applications and positioning those patent applications well if you want to file in Canada eventually. So this is a little bit dated. I think this is from 2017, and so things have changed a little bit, but it was maybe the most recent infographic I could locate. And if you look at where companies are filing patents and you're looking at it country by country, Canada doesn't do too bad for itself. It's right up there with the United Kingdom, which, at least in my consideration, is a bit of a bigger market. It's not too far off from China, which is also a huge market. And it's maybe 1/4 of the filings that are happening in the European Patent Office. And so I think Canada really holds its weight compared to, again, really, really big markets. Here are the top patent holders of fintech patents in Canada, and you'll notice some very recognizable names. You have Visa, which holds about 25% of patents. MasterCard is there. A few US companies, Chicago Mercantile Exchange and Accenture. So really big names have made the effort to extend their portfolio in Canada. And I think that shows a recognition by some of the biggest companies in the world that Canada is a country that's worth investing and worth pushing your patent portfolio into. So a few advantages of why I think you should patent in Canada. And candidly, this is not exclusive to fintech, but it's just part of, I guess, the package really. I think, and I'm probably simplifying things to some extent just for clarity, but I think it's fair to say that the Canadian Patent Office follows very closely, to some extent, to the US Patent Office and the EPO. And so I think for many companies, and if you have clients that are patenting in the US and patenting in Europe, an allowance in either US or Europe can be very, very persuasive in Canada, whether via the PPH or otherwise. And so if you've already invested in the US and you've invested in Europe, I don't know that pushing in Canada is that much more of a push. The other, I suppose, advantage of patenting in Canada is we have a delayed examination protocol, which means that when you file, it doesn't get queued up for examination right away. And so you can actually you can file, you can go national phase, and then you can wait 4 years to from your date of the PCT filing to request examination. And so the benefit of that is you can do your thing in the US, you can do your thing in Europe, and then get an allowance there, then request examination in Canada, and maybe get an allowance there. So the final topic that I just want to touch on are patentability issues in Canada when you're trying to patent fintech. And I think what you'll notice is this is not too radically different from be it Europe or the US or otherwise. There are nuances, and when you get to the nitty-gritty, for sure, there's going to be things that are a little bit different. But I think, again, I'm just simplifying and generalizing for simplicity. So what does it take to patent fintech in Canada? The biggest concern, I think, with most fintech patents is that at the end of it, it's really just software, right? And if you're involved in the patent field, you would know all of the issues that revolve around software patents in general. Most fintech patents are, systems for crunching numbers, sending data between systems, but it's all really, I think, at its core, software doing, processing payments and so on and so on. And so the biggest issue with software patents broadly is that you have to answer the question is it something that you can get a patent over? Is it patent eligible subject matter? In the US, and we're not going to go into the details of all of this, but in the US, the guiding framework is called the Alice Mayo framework from the US Supreme Court. In Europe, the question becomes, is the software patentable? Does it have some sort of technical contribution, or are you just kind of crunching numbers? In Canada, again, I'm really dumbing this down, but we have what the Patent Office applies is called the physicality test, which is, I think at some level, you can make some equations to the Europeans' technical contribution test. So you have to show that whatever you're patenting has some physical effect. Okay, so I think the two ways you can show that are either what I'm simplifying to be an external physical effect. So your innovation changes something in the real world. So maybe if you're using software to control or automate some hardware, that's a really simple example of an external physical effect. So it's not just the software, but it's the software, let's say, causing a physical machine to do something in the real world. That's an external effect outside of the computer. It's the machine doing something. The other way you can show it is through what I'm casually calling an internal physical effect. And so if you can't show that there's some change outside of the computer, well, maybe you can show some change inside of the computer. So you're showing that the computer runs faster. It requires less memory, right? These are physical variations within the computer itself. So when we talk about fintech inventions, where you're really just kind of processing data and it's just software, I don't know. I mean, you could. Maybe there is an argument for an external effect. Like if you think about a fintech invention which works with some payment terminal, and maybe the payment terminal is doing something, the payment terminal is physical and it's outside of maybe there's an argument there. But I think for the most part, most fintech inventions are, you'll have to make an argument about the internal physical effect because it's really just pure software. And so you have to show in one sense or the other, and this is kind of the key, is that the software innovation is maybe allowing you to process finances or do payment processing, but maybe with less memory or less processing than some comparable payment processing algorithm or comparable payment processing software. And if you think about it that way, that's actually not too far away from how the European Patent Office will look at things. I think to some extent, physicality is a technical contribution in Europe to some extent. And so if you're able to position your patent in the European context, I don't know that you'll be struggling too much to do it in Canada as well. So I'll end off with two examples just to kind of show you, here are examples of what the Canadian Patent Office or the Patent Appeal Board have found to be patentable in the fintech field. One of them is the first case is called Chiofati, and the second case is called Credit X Group. So in Chiofati, and again, these can you can talk a lot about the details of these really complex inventions. So you have to forgive me. I'm really dumbing this down to make it more palatable and easy to understand. But this guy called Yves Chiofati, he came up with this invention for something called an anti-benchmark portfolio. It has nothing to do with Tesla. I just found something on Google Images and I threw it in. Anti-benchmark portfolios in a really simplified way, and hopefully I get this right. So usually when you're investing in stocks, usually you give weight to big companies when you're building your stock portfolio or your investment portfolio, because I guess you trust those big companies. But in simple terms, I think an anti-benchmark portfolio sort of spreads out your investment a little bit more to reduce risk and avoiding putting too much money in just a few big names. And so Yves, if I'm pronouncing this right, came up with this computer implemented method as software for selecting and managing investment portfolios. And so, it's fintech, but maybe from the perspective of coming up with a solid investment portfolio and using software to come up with that investment portfolio. And so the question is, does the patent appeal board, so first of all, the patent office rejected the patent. They said it was, it's just data processing. There's no technical contribution, or there's no physicality, or what have you. And so this went up to the patent appeal board, which in Canada sits right above the patent office. And so the patent appeal board said, is this just data processing, or does it physically change how the computer operates? Like, does it have that internal physical effect? Because data processing by itself, if it's not using less memory resources, if it's not changing how the computer works, then the data processing has no physicality. It's just doing numbers, right? So the patent appeal board allowed the decision. They said, there's a technical, and this is something that you can patent kind of in the fintech domain. And so what they said is the computerized calculations here are not merely for yielding information, but permitting the computer to carry out portfolio optimization procedure with significantly less processing and greater speed, right? So really the computer claims not just a computer, but it's a better computer. It's a computer where something has changed physically within the computer. The tricky part is, and I think a lot of patent practitioners, not just in Canada, but everywhere, are sort of grappling with, is how do you, like in your patent, how do you show that your invention uses less processing and greater speed, right? Do you put data in there? I guess you could put data. Data is not really used in the high-tech field as much as in the life sciences. Or you could just show, the closest comparator, something that the closest software that already exists, and then kind of through logic you show that yours uses less calculations and therefore uses less processing. So it's a little, it sounds simple, but it's a little harder to kind of put into practice at the end of the day. The second and final case I want to touch on is called Credit X Group. So they came up with something, a securities trading system, okay? I hope I don't lose you in the details here, but I'll keep it very high level. So the invention involved the pre-consiling of trading data before submitting a trade ticket to downstream trade processing system. So you have trade data here. You need to do some pre-reconciling. So I guess I think pre-reconciling is you're just making sure everything in the trade data makes sense, the details make sense, the reference data, the booking, everything kind of checks out. And once you've done that pre-reconciling, you send this trade data down to some, further system, some black box downstream for some further processing, whatever it may be. But really the invention is that pre-reconciling, that middle step right over here where you're doing these checks. And so at some level, that's just data processing, right? You're just, you're looking at the data, you're looking to make sure everything's okay. And so it's a little bit tricky to really pin this down to anything substantive. So initially the patent appeal board said, there lacks any physical meaning. There's no real change to the computer. But then Credit X Group argued that their invention improves efficiency by preventing unmatched trade tickets from reaching the downstream system. They emphasized the system can integrate with existing third-party systems, thereby enhancing throughput without requiring a redesign of existing. So maybe just to put a long story short, their argument was there is a physicality because, in a sense, when you do this reconciling, if I'll go up here, right over here, and then you send it downstream, you send it to some downstream system, it improves efficiency because the downstream system now requires, I think, less resources to process these trade tickets because you've already sort of done the job for them through that reconciling, if that makes a little bit of sense. So improved efficiency, improvement to downstream trade processing system by pre-reconciling data. Only reconciled trade information reaches the downstream system. This results in a physical improvement to computer efficiency so it makes the downstream system itself work better, which is a little bit interesting because in a sense, you're not arguing that you're not saying that the pre-reconciling that you're doing is improving your computer, but you're saying that the pre-reconciling you're doing is improving a computer that has nothing to do with you, but it's down the line, belongs to some other party, and you're helping them out by improving their computer system, which is, I guess, a bit of an interesting take to it. So final conclusion, Canadian Patent Office is open to allowing FinTech patents. However, you have to draft them well. You have to really key into the improvements in computer functionality. Data processing and transfer is not enough. And this is not an insignificant issue, because oftentimes you'll get vendors who come to you and say, oh, well, we're just moving data from here to here, to this computer to that computer, and we're calculating this and that. And that's all fair and well, but that's not really enough to get the patent in Canada or elsewhere. But I think the good news is we're generally similar to the US and Europe. So you don't have to, your client doesn't have to invest too much more to get their patent in Canada if they've already got it in the US and Europe. And so we encourage companies to invest in Canada with a strong emerging market. You'll benefit from the Patent Prosecution Highway Program, which, if you're not familiar with patents, allows you to use one allowance in one country to get a faster allowance in another country. And you can use the delayed examination to just see how things go in other countries before coming in Canada. Yeah, I think that's my presentation. And somehow I did make it to 20 minutes, because I see Blanca has left me the 5-minute mark message. And so that's everything. So thanks, everybody. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Ahmed, for your wonderful presentation. Let me just share with you a question that's coming from the audience. Do you think Canada's rules are more flexible than Europeans or the US for FinTech patents?
Yeah, my own opinion is Canada kind of is in the middle of Europe and the US. I think Europe is a little bit more strict. I think the US has a few things in its kind of software framework that maybe are not as available in Canada in terms of getting patents through. And so I'd probably put it somewhere in the middle. Yeah.
Thank you, Ahmed. I also noticed that well, regarding patentability, since they're mostly software, as you said, do these kinds of inventions get protected via copyright mainly? Is that the case when it comes to strictly software FinTech inventions?
Yeah. So I think copyright, mostly protects, maybe actually to Jose's presentation, can protect data, maybe in the compilations of data and maybe the software as well. But just the code. But I think trade secrets may be kind of what people may rely on, and keeping that software as a secret and not releasing it. I think that's usually maybe the more persuasive case when it comes to it.
Well, thank you so much, Ahmed. Thank you so much for your contributions. Thank you for sharing this space with me once again. And I guess this brings the satellite session to the end, and also the AIPPI Young Summit of 2025. I want to take a moment to thank each of you for your time and energy and the brilliance that you brought to the table. Throughout this summit, we've had the opportunity to exchange not only knowledge, but vision, to explore how the future of IP will be shaped by the next generation of thinkers and bridge builders. It's been an honor to be a part of this space, so full of insight, commitment, and purpose. But before we part ways, please allow me to share a few important notes. As part of the ongoing collaboration between AIPPI and AIPPI, we would like to invite you to the upcoming joint webinar on the 17th of July, which is next Thursday. The subject will be AI and copyright, and where are we now? You'll find registration details at AIPPI.org and on the official social media channels for both AIPPI and AIPPI. And of course, don't forget to check out the AIPPI Young Members Forum during the AIPPI World Congress in Yokohama. This is a dedicated and powerful space for young professionals to gather, connect, and keep building the momentum. Details for this can be found in the official Congress program on AIPPI.org. So, gracias again for your participation.